Ghostface is back, and so is Sydney for Scream 7. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on Scream 7. What was your anticipation level going into it? What were your concerns, and what did you feel about it afterwards? Obviously, with the Scream movies, there's a lot of spoiler talk that people like to have about these movies. If you want to talk spoilers, please just put a spoiler warning at the top of it, just in case someone hasn't seen the movie yet, but still wanted to know if it was worth seeing. All that said, let's get started with the good. And I've said it many times before, but Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time. And I find the Scream franchise to be one of the most consistent horror franchises, where so many of the iconic horror franchises, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, at some point in time just goes completely off the rails, basically into self-parody level of insanity. And Scream has remained fairly consistent. The low, compared to other franchises, isn't that low. And just the general vibe of what these movies do, I really enjoy. I was in high school in the late 90s, so the Kevin Williamson era of slashers horror movie kind of shaped my taste in horror films in a lot of ways. So, just in general, any Scream movie is just feeding into my general tastes of, it's a slasher, it's got a little comedy, it's got a little bit of commentary to it. It just has a specific vibe aesthetic to it with a whodunit, a mystery, that's a package that I enjoy. And adding to that, with this film, Sidney Prescott has returned front and center. And really, it's the first time she's been front and center since Scream 2. Because in Scream 3, she was kind of off, kind of trying to avoid the action, and joins in a little later. Scream 4, it's split between Jill and her friends and then the adults. And so it's not, she's prominent, but it's split leads. And then with 5 and 6, of course, Sam was the lead character. She's not even in 6. And so for the first time in almost 30 years, she's the sole focus of our attention. And I've said it many times before, but I love it when a franchise is able to show a character over time. And here we're seeing Sidney 30 years later, now with a daughter the same age that she was when all of this began. And so you're seeing her transform, how she's been shaped, all the normal things about her, all the strange things about her. I just enjoy that kind of thing. And this movie provides that in a way that the updates in 4 and 5 didn't, simply because in those movies we just got a little glimpse and then she's pulled away from the place far away that she's moved to where the action takes place. Here, we're at her home with her family front and center. Another nice thing about this movie, there's a number of gnarly kills in it. Some of them are inventive and clever. There's a little bit more of a playfulness to this ghost face. There's one in a bar in particular that was like, oh, that's nasty. And then went, oh, this is still going. It's still going somewhere with this. And just even little details. There's one kill where something happens with an eye during it, and I just went, oh. And I like that. Like watching a Scream movie that makes me squirm a little bit when the kills happen. I'm down for that. And there's multiple times that happens in this movie. And this isn't a spoiler because it was announced long time ago, but Matthew Lillard does appear in the film. And he was in the movie more than I was expecting him to be. And he was as fun as I'd hoped that he would be. There's a couple things in particular that actually kind of made me laugh out loud. And he's really good at playing these over-the-top psychos. And the way that he's used in the film, the places that he shows up, trying to be careful not to spoil anything, is done in a way that you get the Matthew Lillardisms that you want doing the Stu Macher thing. So that put a big grin on my face, in particular some specific lines and line deliveries from him. And without being able to touch too much on this, there's some ideas in the film in restructuring of the movie that was just kind of interesting. It was an interesting way for a Scream movie to play out, with the way they play around with what you know, when you know it, What information can you trust, and why is it a little bit suspicious what you're learning? And in this era of AI deep fakes, what can you trust? And that's a nice little dynamic to add into a Scream movie in light of the whodunit aspect of these films. However, while there were a number of things in this movie that I enjoyed, that worked really well, the genre makes it just so watchable because of the characters and just love the franchise. There's quite a few problems here, so unfortunately, we gotta move on to the bad. And ultimately, I feel like this is a movie that is utterly sabotaged by its own desperation. And what I mean by that is that it's a movie that, if you know anything about the production of this film, this was not plan A, this was not plan B, this was like plan C or D. Radio Silence, the directors of 5 and 6, wanted to do a whole trilogy of films. They would have come back. They just wanted to do a movie between 6 and 7, Abigail. And the studio was like, no, we want to put Scream 7 into production too fast. We're going to move on. And so they dropped the directors of the last 2 movies. Then Christopher Landon signed on, who's the guy that did Freaky, Happy Death Day. I was very excited about him stepping on to do the project. And then, of course, everything went down with Melissa. Jenna left the project. Christopher has said openly, I signed on to make a specific script starring the Sam character. And so as soon as that wasn't going to be the case, that wasn't the movie I signed on to make. So I left the project. And thus created kind of this place where the movie was falling apart and they needed a plan to win back trust and generate excitement. So what do you do if you want to generate excitement? Well, bring back Sidney, bring back Kevin Williamson, and throw in a bunch of cameos. And essentially that's what they announced. And it's a movie that feels like in their desperation to do things that like would generate excitement, buzz, look, Matthew Lillard's coming back. Kevin Williamson's coming back. In doing so, they put a series of constraints on their movie. If we've got to develop a film that makes sense to put these characters into it, to have this happen, that doesn't make it the most creatively satisfying film. It doesn't make it the best film. It just makes it a movie that has a bunch of things that are familiar to Scream fans. They replaced wit and cleverness with gimmicks and desperation. That's kind of what this movie felt like to me. That doesn't mean, a lot of it worked for me. A lot of the gimmicks were fun to see. But when you're driving factors, how do we win people back? And you go with the gimmick version of that rather than the great script version of that, this is the film that you get. And one of the ones that I hate to pick on this particular thing, but Kevin Williamson is an iconic writer. In particular, in the late 90s. Invented Scream. I will always be grateful for him for doing that. And then also did The Faculty and many other things. They were huge for my formative years. But he is not an iconic film director. I believe he only has one previous film directorial credit. So bringing him on to direct the film always felt to me like a gimmick. It's like stunt casting with directing. The guy that invented Scream is finally going to direct a Scream movie. It's a great headline, except Kevin Williamson is not nearly as good of a director as Wes Craven. Certainly not as proven. And he doesn't have nearly the track record that Radio Silence had when they were hired to do Scream 5. Like, coming off of Ready or Not, it was like, yeah, this, if you can't have Wes Craven, these two guys probably will do a really good job. And so you have a movie with developing the script around trying to shoehorn in cameos, bringing back Neve Campbell and trying to build a story with that, but also who can we bring back from 5 and 6 that'll sign on to say yes, and a director that is easily the weakest of the directors that we've had for a Scream movie yet. Legendary writer, but not a legendary director. And I feel the whole movie just has that flavor to it. So to that point about the directing, I thought the whole movie just kind of felt off. Like it never kind of found its rhythm, its vibe, everything just was a little bit weird. And some of that is the basic concept of it, while it was fun the way they played around with when certain information was revealed and when the mask comes off and when we learn specific information, it also kind of creates a situation of it's kind of like a mystery whodunit, but a very like off version of it. The basic nature of a normal Scream movie is thrown off because of these changes, but it still tries to have the moments. So you'll have the twins show up in a scene to be like, all right, here's the rules of being in a scream stab horror movie at this point in time. But it didn't fit into the movie they were making. It just felt like a shoehorned element, to the extent that even in the scene, one of the characters goes, I thought we weren't going to do the rules in this one. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. And it's like they're poking fun at the cliche while still doing the cliche, even though it doesn't make any sense in the context of the movie. And no insight is given. It's just one of those things you're supposed to have in a Scream movie. So they shoehorned it in. And so it's just like that's that off vibe about it. Like it's trying to do all the tropes of the franchise while trying to do something different. And the ideas just aren't really compatible. And that kind of all throughout the movie, there's little things like that it tries to be subversive, but also way too straightforward in other senses. And so it's just off. Scream movies have always had a certain amount of suspension of disbelief built into it, the nature of the Ghostface being able to get away with all the kills until the very end, the police could never catch them. How is this person in these places? That's always been a flavor to it. I felt like this movie had more kind of these just strange logic leaps, or like just moments that just felt like that's not how that would play out. There's no explanation as to why this would work this way. There's a shot in the trailer. It's as you probably, this isn't a spoiler at all, but it's the opening scene of the movie at the Stumacher home where someone falls off the stairs, and they show this in the trailer that Ghostface leans over to, like, as the person's falling, have them fall on the knife. But the way it happens, Ghostface puts the knife like this, pointing upwards on the chest, so the person falls down flat from 10, 15 feet up onto the knife and gets stabbed. And that's how the character dies. But it's the sort of thing you see that in any person that understands anything. If a person falls on you at that, the knife would pushed into Ghostface as well would be extraordinarily painful, as well as just a face smacking you in the face. It's like stuff like that where you go, what? Why would Ghostface have a person fall on top of them? What? Say she weighs 100 pounds. 100 pounds falling on you from 10 feet up would crush you. I mean, you'd live, but it would be a bad day. It's just like strange things like that. There's a part where Joel McHale, who's a police officer, is pointing a gun at Ghostface, who's like less than 10 feet in front of him. Ghostface is kind of like trying to use a person to the body shield, but is way off to the side. So it's like, I'm not going to shoot you. I just have to do this. And they don't pull the trigger. Like, just things that, like, shots staging, like basic things that make you go, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I don't like to nitpick general things like that because I think that's very minor. But when a whole movie is just a series of, like, the staging, the framing of shots, the choices just make no sense, some of that just goes back to a director that just isn't as experienced as this sort of thing and just puts little choices in, frames things in such a way, blocks the people in a way that makes the audience go, what? That doesn't add up. And, like, to that strange logic of it, there's 3 different characters that just disappear for the whole third act of the movie. For that matter, the police just disappear for the third act of the movie. And it's the sort of thing that, like, well, we really wanted it to be about Sydney and her daughter, and all right, gotcha. But the script, the movie itself does not give an explanation for why people just stop helping and disappear. And it really doesn't explain why in this town that's not terribly large, the police just never show up when they should. Just, they're gone. Like, the way the third act of this movie plays out, it is very well known where the action is taking place to multiple people that have cars and phones, and no backup shows up. It is like watching, like, this, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And it just pulls you out of the movie when I'm sitting there like, wait, why would Ghostface put a knife like this? Why doesn't he shoot that person in the face? Where are the police? Why did this person not show up to help? What's going on here? And then where the movie really fell apart for me was with the Ghostface reveal. And there have been several really shaky, questionable Ghostface reveals in the past. I felt like this was by far just the least thought through Ghostface reveal that they've ever had. Where it happens and you get the speech afterwards. As soon as the credits started rolling, I wrote in my notes, word salad the motivation. There's this monologue that goes on, and I'm like, I understand the words, in what it means in a sense. This is nonsense. This does not remotely add up. It doesn't make any sense. Like watching the movie, I had a really good idea who was going to be Ghostface. I felt like they telegraphed a few things. And when it happened, I was like, this is completely random. It's both predictable and telegraphed and completely random at the exact same time. And it's a sort of like a great Ghostface reveal, kind of pulls the movie together on a plot level, on a thematic level. And it's like, okay, I get what this movie's about. Oh, nice. And had this movie had a good Ghostface reveal at the end that was satisfying, it really would have elevated the movie and fixed some of my issues from the past, earlier in the movie. But this was like a disastrously bad Ghostface reveal that amplified everything I didn't like about the things that happened earlier in the film. It just felt so random. And I took my son to go see the movie, and he was legitimately like, who's this person again? What's this going on here? Because it was so whoop. And then there's Ghostface. It didn't add up. And while the movie is tackling ideas about, being a mother, passing on trauma, survivors, victims, AI, what can you believe? It touches on it, but it doesn't say anything. Like, you can see what they would say is the meta commentary, but it doesn't have any actual commentary. It just throws word salad, just nonsense out there. Just left the movie really disappointed. As someone that loves these movies, that was hoping I was going to be wrong about this one, because I went in pretty skeptical. And then it absolutely did not come together. My son liked it a little bit more than I did. Here's what he had to say. What'd you think about it?
I was really excited for this movie. I have to say this had some of the best kills in the whole series, I'd say. But near the end, I just stopped liking it as much. I feel like the big surprises at the end of it weren't there wasn't much motive. But overall, I'd say it's okay. It meted my expectations, maybe a little less, but it was a okay, good movie. I feel like the goods were really good, but the bads were just unfulfilling, but it wasn't actually bad.
So put that all together. It looks like you enjoyed it a little bit more than I did, but you also shared a number of my issues with the film of in particular, when it gets to the end of it, a great Scream movie, it's pulled together by the final twists and reveals, and you're like, all right. And this one, I just don't feel like that happened at all.
I was going to say that this was my second favorite just because I enjoyed it, and then it got to the end, and I was like, this is not the best.
Right, and that's very disappointing. Before I give you my final thoughts, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about Scream 7? Seems like opinions are kind of all over the place on this one, which is pretty standard for Scream movies. They pretty much always had audience reactions that are pretty well all over the place when it comes to the sequels. Come back this weekend. I'll be re-ranking the Scream movies. I'll have a couple other rankings as well to do some of those deep dives. And hopefully either tonight or early tomorrow, I'll have a video talking about spoilers a little bit, in particular on the Ghostface reveal and how they handled a couple other things. So be sure to come back for all of that. Scream's my favorite horror movie of all time. The Scream franchise traditionally has been one of the most consistent horror franchises, and I think it might be running out of steam. There's only so many times someone can come back to try and kill Sydney or people close to Sydney before it's just completely played out, strains too much credibility, and there's nothing left to say, there's nothing left to comment on, and there's not a motivation that feels satisfying. And I'm wondering if we've reached that point. And we maybe 10, 15 years from now, there's something new to say. But this feels like a movie that was born out of desperation. I still like the genre. I like seeing Sydney at a different phase of life. but the script, the Ghostface reveal, the logic pulling things together, this wasn't it. Overall, it's a C+ on the entertainment scale, a 6 out of 10, and you can just wait to stream this one. And if you're a Scream fan, you already went to go see it anyway, but if you're just kind of more casual, there's no reason to go out and rush to see this film. Be sure to come back this weekend for the rest of my Scream coverage, and keep talking movies and TV too much.